Hi, in this video I will talk about Oracle Cloud Bills Receivable in Fusion Receivable module. First of all, we will talk about what is Bills Receivable. Then I can show you the setup steps and show you the transactions. Then we can answer some question which is related to Bills Receivable. So let's start. First of all, what is a bill receivable? As you know, bill receivable is a separate transaction in account receivables module. It's like a document that a customer formally agree to pay it to you or to the organization, but at some future date, like maturity date. It's like future date payments. You will receive like a receipt or whatever. But in this case, it's like bill receivable transactions, but maturity date of this document will be in the future, not in the current date or the current period. Bill receivable document effectively replaces for the related amount the open debit items that are applied to the bill. Bills receivable are often remitted for collection and used to secure short-term funding because it's maturity, so it's like short-term funding that the customers agree to pay this amount at this date, which is maturity date. What is a drawee? Drawee there is one step to define customer side purpose drawee. What is it or what is that? It's like a customer who accepts that the funding in the form of bill receivables with the intention of repaying the party that issues the bill when it matures. What does it mean? That there is one setup as a customer definition that you need to define a supplier side purpose as drawee. This drawee means that the customers he accepted that he will pay this amount in the future with these organizations. And also during create the customer AR transactions, you have to assign this customer side as the transactions to highlight that these transactions are going to create a bill receivables for it. This is drawee. You can only define customer bill to sides as drawees. What does it mean? As you know, in general, when you define the customers, you define the side purpose bill to. There are a lot of lists there: bill to, ship to, drawees, blah blah blah. So in case of you need to define a drawee to using for the purpose of bill receivables, so you have also to define or to ensure that the current or existing customers have sites purpose bill to define drawees. In case of your current customer or on future customers have only ship to or any other purpose other than bill to, you cannot define drawees, and the bill receivables will not work with you. And we will see it later in the setup. Bill receivables setup steps. Setup steps, I just take like a screenshot or whatever in the steps to show you. You have to follow the same steps in your either demo or whatever. After that, once everything is okay, you can go ahead on production instance. Let's navigate to this Excel or this Word. As you know that these bill receivables for any transaction in ER, you have to manage the accounting. This manage accounting to ensure or to tell the system for this account type, this is the account either constant or it will read it from transaction type, specific source as it's like constant, whatever. So first of all, you have to manage auto accounting rule for two account type: bills receivable to put your bills receivables, and remitted bills receivable. I think it's general and straightforward definition. Second thing is transaction type. We said these bill receivables as a transactions, right? It's not a receipt, it's a transaction with a maturity date. So in this case, you have to define transaction type, the type or class of this, like bill receivables. So you have to ensure that you have already at your legal entity or transaction type sets, depends on your business unit or whatever, that you have at least one transaction type under transaction class bills receivable. Yes, open receivable, post to ledger, blah blah blah, and this reference account also is very, very important, that you have to also, once you define the transaction type, you have to assign it to business unit. Once you assign the business unit, the system will ask you tell me what is this account. Once you highlight its bills receivable, the system will ask you, tell me what is the bills receivables, unpaid bills receivables, remitted bills receivables, factored bills receivables, because this account will be useful during in case of you once you create the bills receivables, you are going to make a remittance batch or whatever, either factored or not factored. We will see it later. Signed and issued by Drawee. This like more advanced options that in some cases, once you create the bills receivables automatically through the system through a specific schedule process, do you need acceptance from the customers? Do you need it signed or issued by Drawee or whatever? Like more control on these bills receivables, that I will not, the system will not give it a number, will not also create accounting for it, or will not giving accounting date for this bill document until you got like approval or signed from Drawee or the customers of these bill receivables. All of these options, all of them optionally, it depends on your business requirement and so on. What is next? Manage transaction source. Once you define transaction type, you have also to define transaction source. Here the type is manual, name, description, date, blah blah blah, and also the standard transaction type which you defined for bills receivable. It's like all of these steps until now is a general set of steps: auto accounting, transaction type, transaction source. In transaction source, you will assign the transaction type which is related to bills receivable. What next? Receivable system options. Under receivable system option, there are two tabs: billing and revenue, cash processing. For this, it's like cash processing, so you have to navigate the cash processing tab. You will find enable bills receivables and enter the source which you already defined here under this bills receivable transaction source. And also here there are allow payment of unrelated transactions. Also it's like optional, but it's not mandatory. Whatever is highlighted is very, very, very important to assign it and to fill these fields. What next? Receipt method and the class. Because again, it's like a maturity dates that the customers will repaying or will paying this amount. Agreed on that he will pay on the future or at a specific maturity date. Receipt class and methods. There are creation method. This creation method, you have to select what bills receivables. It's like a list of value. You have to select the bills receivables. After that, enter the name, printed name, date, blah blah blah. And here you can also assign the transaction type which you already defined before. Customer payment method, you can also assign bills receivables or keep it as a null. For number of bills receivable rules, there are a lot of options. There is one, for example, one per customer, one per invoice, that the system option this system asks you how many bills receivable you need. For example, 1 per invoice. So for each invoice, the system will create bill receivables. When per payment schedule, that this is when you run this batch process, he will also generate bill receivables per payment schedules. 1 per customers. So for each customer, the system will generate only 1 bill receivables, and so on. Also, this is a list of value. You can select whatever. This leads days, that how many days you need to generate bills receivables, either for example 2 days, 10 days, 30 days, or 0, like immediately once I create the invoice I will go to schedule process to run these bills receivables to generate the bill receivables customers documents for our AR transaction. What next? For edit receipts and class and methods, once you define it, there are also remittance. In case of you define creation method bills receivable remittance, so in this case, once you created, so you will go to navigate to the other steps after you generated to create a remittance batch for these receipts. So in this case, in case of you select the creation method is bills receivable remittance method will be standard. Either you define or select this combination of definitions. The system will ask you what is the remittance bank account. You have to define it. And for bill receivables, you have also to assign what is the remitted factored, what is the GL accounting for confirmation remittance, because as you know, once you define the receipt is created, the status of the receipts will be first as a confirmed, after that remitted, after you cleared it from cash clearing will be changed to be cleared, unapplied, unidentified. It's like a normal receipt methods for remittance or not remitted and so on. Also, there is one bills receivables remittance. You have to also define or select there are 2 tabs under this receivable remittance bank account, remittance receivable remittance. You have also to assign what bills receivables for customer payment method. What is the next step? Customers. As I told you, if you have, in this case, maybe you have current customers and future customers. For the current customers, you have to navigate to these customers and select it and search for the sites and add the sites like Drawee. The first site or the current site will be built to as a purpose. You have also to assign or to create a Drawee purpose to tell the system that these customers will be using for the bills receivable feature. For the edit account for these current or existing customers, edit accounting, you have also to assign payment details, to assign our receipt methods, which you already defined before, and assign the bank account, which is this bank account for the customers. And this bank account, what is the country, like a bank account for any customers, you can define it. After that, you can also customer site and receipt method. For the edit site, which is Drawee, you have to also assign the receipt methods and the bank account. Here, as I told you, you will define 2. If you have existing customers, in general the purpose will be 2, right? So you have to come here to add another purpose as Drawee with the same date, everything, blah blah blah. And for this Drawee, go to just payment details and assign these receipt methods and bank account. This account name is for purpose for French or whatever, because like a payment format, as you know, this payment once it's created, it will be follow the format to transfer or whatever, like payment process request and the payment process profile in account payables. Don't forget to make this purpose for existing customers or for any future customers. This transmission configurations is just for transmissions. If you are going to make transmissions or whatever, ignore this, because this is for a specific other setup. And also this for, as I told you, here the system or he assigned a specific format. either French or whatever, for bills, receivables, remittance format. Because as you know that you can also custom the format of these bills, receivables. You can define whatever you need, and you have just to assign it as tokenization payment system setting to tell the system using this format to generate the bills, receivables. Also this related to the specific format. Outbound, ignore. Also for once you define the format and the payment process profile, you have to assign it to manage internal payee to tell again the system that this is the format of these bills receivable. Routing, okay. Here, this is once you define all of this, ignore this routing and this routing again for a specific format. In case of you follow, you have to follow the same, else ignore all of them. You have to again define enabled these bills receivable for system option receivables. You have to define cast AR transaction type, AR transaction source. You have to update the customer sites to be Drawee, and assign this transaction source to this transaction type, and define the bank account of the customers, and enable Drawee, and also assign the receipt method to the Drawee. This is the steps required for bill receivables. After that, I am going to create a transaction, AR transaction. I will select the same transaction source for bills receivable and transaction type for bills receivables, and select our customers, which is I enabled for him Drawee as a purpose type of the customer site. For this Drawee, once you show more next to general informations, you will find a tab here, payment. For this payment, you have to select payment term, whatever, and select receipt methods. These receipt methods, which you already defined before, either bills receivables only, all bills receivable remittance. Here is a bank account. Again, as I told you, this bank account, in case of you are going to select a specific bank account or with a specific format or whatever, you can also select here the bank account of these customers. What else? Once you define or create or update the current transaction to include the receipt methods of bills receivables, you can, after that, you can run the process. From schedule process, you have to create bills receivable batch. For this create bills receivable batch, the program will create a bills receivable batch for all of the either customers or transaction types or dates based on the parameters you passed here. As you know, the parameter business unit, transaction source, batch date, accounting date, issue date, batch mode. There are two modes, either draft, to just a draft to show you how many bills receivable transaction will create after you running this create bills receivable batch with these parameters, or a final خلاص. This is the finals, and you cannot do any changes once this process is completed successfully. And you can also select specific customer name with maturity date. After this completed successfully, you will find a report that automatic bills receivable batch. This bills receivable batch will show you how many bills receivable numbers is generated. Here 1, 2, 3, 4 based on your parameters. Here either you select a lot of customers, one customers, whatever you maturity date, which is there are a lot of transaction or bill receivables under this maturity date, or there are a lot of bills receivables transactions under this customer name or number. Once you go navigate to this, show you the number and Drawee name, which is the customer name. Just take this number and navigate to the manage bills receivables portfolio, you will find this receivable bill with this number, with this data and this amount, maturity date, currency, what is the drawee, that's the customer, and bank account, and the amount as you see here, this the amount. And you will see that bills receivables is pending remittance. If you assign this bills receivable remittance, once it means remittance, you are going to create what? Remittance batch. So you just go to task, create bills receivable remittance batch, select everything again, receipt class, method for bills receivables, standard, and number or the bills receivables here to create what? Bills receivables remittance batch. For the manage bills receivable remittance batch, there is approve. Once you approve it, it will again give you remittance batch management report to show you how many batches is created. You have after that create statement batches for these remittance batches, and also just for output, either Excel text file or whatever, to create statements in case of you again assign to specific routing bill or whatever. This is the bills receivables. This is the setups. This is the process, that the process only through schedule process. In case of you select only bills receivables without remittance, until here it will be finished. If in case of you generate assign the bills receivables remittance batch, you have to continue to manage bill receivables and create the remittance batch for these bills receivables. And again, it's like in general purpose that once you create the remittance batches, the process of the approval will come after that. This is the setup steps. What next? This is the section of answer some questions, that why doesn't the bill receivables have an accounting date? Again, as I told you before, maybe the bill receivables is a signed bill that requires drawee acceptance, requires that the customers to accept it. Once the bill receivable is accepted, receivables assign an acceptance accounting date to the bill. Why cannot I create bills receivables from transactions? There are two steps. First of all, you have to assign transaction both a bills receivable creation receipt methods, as I showed you before, and also assign a bill to customer defined as drawee. Only transactions with this assignment are eligible for bills receivable batches. What next? Can I incomplete and delete a bill receivables? Yes, you can only incomplete a bill receivables under certain conditions. What is these conditions? First of all, that all of these conditions must be true. Bill receivable is signed bill with the status pending acceptance, or an assigned or drawee issued bill with the status pending remittance. As I showed you before, this is status like pending remittance. Bill has never been posted to general ledger. There are no payment against the bill. After you incomplete a bill, you can delete it, but before incomplete you cannot delete it, like AR transaction, general transactions. Once you complete it, you have to incomplete. After incomplete, you can delete. You can also incomplete bill receivables to update details of the bill and again complete the bill, like also AR transaction. You can do the same, either incomplete, update and complete again, or incomplete and delete. This is the bills receivables in AR. Thanks for watching. Good luck.